Hello and welcome to No Veto Video. I'm Carson.
And I'm Katherine. We're happy to have you along with us as we talk about Blues Brothers from 1980, directed by John Landis, written by John Landis and Dan Aykroyd, starring Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, with notable cameos by Carrie Fisher and John Candy and the who's who's of rhythm and blues.
It rhymed.
Lots of good things.
The Blues Brothers follows the story of Jake and Elwood blues and their many exploits through Chicago and the surrounding metro area.
Fair enough. So why this movie and why now? In part because you'd never seen it, and it's, I think, one of the features of No Veto Video as we started it out was, you haven't seen this movie? Oh my god, I can't believe you haven't seen this movie. And then the other person's like, yeah, but that's kind of on purpose. And then, the other person, then the pusher person is saying, like, no, you absolutely positively have to see this movie. And then we say, well, you can use your choice for it. And so I've used my choice for it.
Well, not necessarily. I've been doing that on purpose. That wasn't entirely the point of No Veto Video. Just haven't had the occasion or never even heard of the movie for some of them.
And sometimes it's, no, I think I've been okay with this. But, so The Blues Brothers, it's a movie that's very near and dear to the hearts of my family of origin. And so sharing that with you and having you perhaps come to love it, I think it's something that people who live near Chicago should at least have a passing familiarity with. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And yeah, and it's just a very fun movie, and so sometimes you just want to have a fun movie. So, thinking about Blues Brothers and our response to it, we watched it last night. You've had sort of a day to process it. What I have been experiencing in the day since we've watched it to right this moment is just how infective the soundtrack is. And I'm wondering is, your response to the music of this film, and what else is there? Like, is there anything beyond the soundtrack to enjoy about this film?
Well, the soundtrack I'd already been familiar with a lot of, and it really is a phenomenal soundtrack. In much the same way that, like, Atomic Blonde was for the later 80s.
Period.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen that episode, go back and watch it. But, yeah, backing up just a bit, you said it's important for people in Illinois to have a familiarity with the movie. I'd lived in Illinois almost all my life, mostly not in the Chicagoland area, but even downstate where I grew up, people would go, "You haven't seen Blues Brothers? It's really important." So it's just, anytime it was on TV, I'd been doing something else and only caught bits and pieces of, and never even a whole scene. So I do agree with you that if you have a familiarity with Chicago at all, you need to see the movie just for the landmarks, and now 30 years going on 40 years later, how they've changed.
And also how prescient. Like, some of these things, like, we're still talking about.
Like Nazis in Chicago.
And the Mount Prospect Police Department, and, there are parts of this that are like, ooh, gosh, that's a very timely reference, and then it's like, for a movie that was made nearly 40 years ago. Or
the Chicago music scene, which is still thriving.
It is, although very much, a result of the diaspora. So one of the things to sort of lift up, I think, from this film is that a lot of the musicians are from the R&B scenes of other places, like that there aren't native Chicago musicians for the most part in featured in the Blues Brothers band. that a lot of them are from Memphis or from Mississippi or from, those sorts of places. And so, just sort of holding that together. But you can't get, like, the people who are dancing in this, it's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much fun. And and so to me the question of, I've been picking on movies, and you guys are going to say, Catherine, you hypocrite, and you will be right about, like, what's the aim, what's the reach, what's the story that they're trying to tell. And I would love to spin you some, like, yarn about missions from God and calling, but it's just, like, a series of vignettes. And I think when the movie says, like, oh yeah, I guess we have to have a plot, like, we need to go and tend to the plot, it is never as successful as, like, so my favorite parts of these movies are, like, putting the band back together.
Yeah. And,
like, going to visit each person in the, like, where they've landed, and then getting their introductory song, and getting the, the bit about...
And blackmailing them into joining.
Or, whatever it is. But that for me, the music is why you watch this movie. And if you don't have that, like... what do you got?
I feel not really let down, but my expectations were really high for this because everyone my entire life, from my family and your family and friends, have been saying how wonderful this movie is. And it is a great movie, but when you're expecting it to be a 15 on a 10 scale, it came in about a 7 out of 10 for me, which is still a really good movie, but it wasn't like this above 10 of 10.
Because, Carson will watch things that are a 3.
Yeah.
And be okay with it.
Especially if they're hyped as being a 1, and then turns out to be a 3. Then I'm really thrilled.
So, you've got this, all of these car crash scenes of just, like, rampant mayhem of, apparently no one taught the cops to drive. Anyway, but, like, anytime that they can possibly get stuck, like, in something, there's just, like, Matchbox car level of, like, and, the movie always takes pains to say, like, no one was hurt. Like, somehow, even for all of this terrible, calamitous destruction of many things, buildings and cars, but no one's ever harmed, no one's ever hurt. And so it sort of makes, like, comic booky, this level of, violence, so that you don't have the same... like, if people were getting hurt, none of this would be funny. But since no one's getting hurt, when you watch a car kind of magically flip through the air just because someone put it in reverse, suddenly it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Oh, and that brings me to a comment that I had while we were watching it. The only reason they're even after Jake and Elwood is because Elwood was driving on a suspended license. At a certain point, it's not cost effective to pursue this anymore. They've done probably millions of dollars worth of damage between them and the police and the Nazis chasing them and various other groups who have been destructive in their pursuits of Jake and Elwood. At a certain point, just write off the offense.
Carson was like, they would just... That wouldn't happen. Like, it's like, that's not the point. The point isn't whether or not this follows the penal code of Illinois. That's not the point of this movie. The point of this movie is to...
Oh no, I fully believe...
Wreck cars and play music.
I fully believe we'd waste our taxpayers' money in this state by pursuing things that aren't worth it financially, but...
But there you go. So what are some of the things, though, that, like, as an Illinois viewer, as a suburbanite viewer, what are some of the things that you, like, clicked on that seemed like like references of special mention.
Well, they did mention the county we currently live in, which I thought was a nice touch
exciting.
for us. They did it just for us, you know.
It was just for us
40 years ago. Yeah. I noticed they do not show anything really south of 80. Depending where in Joliet they were, that could potentially be a bit south of 80. But I grew up way south of 80, so we didn't see any of the cornfields I'm used to or any of the towns I'm used to from my formative years. But we did see a lot that I've witnessed over the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just like I said earlier, identifying landmarks that we've seen, like the Picasso, which now looks a little different.
Yeah, so Daily Plaza, I mean, like, you hit the highlights of... In fact, they take this unusually long car chase through downtown Chicago because, you Lower Record Drive, back out onto the interstate, back out onto, like, where are you guys going? But it's almost so that they can just give us another shot of, like, the river, they want to give us another shot of, like, Marina Place, they want to give us another shot of... the McCormick Center, they want to give us another shot of this, that, or the other. And it really does sort of lovingly show off Chicago in that sort of respect. I'm also thinking about not just the landmarks of Chicago, but some of the other, like, short of having it snow and then putting lawn chairs out, there was, so you had single room occupancy, like that's where Elwood lives. He lives in like a men's hotel where he has a single room.
The drawbridges, that was a nice touch.
And they take a trip out to the like the Bungalow Belt, the sort of ring of town, like the ring of the city where people built these single story brick homes that's very distinctive look, the 2 flats and 3 flats that you see in this is a reference to Maxwell Street, and that's where the soul food restaurant is, and just sort of like hitting all of those things that show you that they understand what's beautiful about the city, and and it's the kind of touch that gets made by somebody who's put in the time to care about a place and to care about getting the look of a place right. At one point you turned to me and said, was this filmed in Chicago? And I said, if it's not, it's the most Chicago-y looking. Yeah. And it was obviously filmed in Chicago.
I knew parts were like the L, which looks nothing like that. The trains are much more modern now. And some of the other things were clearly Chicago, but it could have been stock photography or stock video, I guess, in this case. And then the rest of it could have been facades on a soundstage somewhere. But
in actuality, this was filmed here, which is nice. I think there's just something about seeing a real space. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, which wasn't in movies until suddenly John Grisham was a thing. And then thereafter, Memphians are sitting around going like, well, that doesn't go there, like that. Yeah, there's this point in the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise where he's running down an alley and then he turns a corner and he's halfway across the city. And it's very disconcerting for somebody who lives in that city. And I'm wondering if you like really knew Chicago of the 80s, if you would have a similar experience. But I felt like, okay, I kind of figure out, I kind of know where they are. I kind of feel like I know where they are. And there was a verisimilitude in the midst of all of the comic book nonsense. There was something about the space that felt real and grounded. And
there were cut scenes, so if they did need to get somewhere further away, a lot of times they just would pan out for a while and then come back. Like, go over to the band for a while when Jake and Elwood were separate from them. Yeah. And there's so much about the music I want to go back to that for a little while. So you got Aretha Franklin James Brown.
James Brown, Ray Charles. Really, like, just a fun performance from Cab Calloway in his final film performance. And you know, the Blues Brothers are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, they both do fine as musicians and as performers. But for me, what really is the heart of the movie, as far as the music goes, are the other people in it. You know, the other musicians who are behind them. The actual heart and soul of the Blues Brothers are the, like, people who've given their lives to music. And oh, what a good thing.
Speaking of the music, there was also a lot of music on the radio, like Sam and Dave and various others that fit right in. It was kind of interesting when they start playing country.
Well, you know, and this is an old movie, so we've already given you the warning. So when they don't have a gig, and he's driven them out to Kokomo?
Yeah, that's where they said they were anyway. So across the state line even.
Way out in Indiana, which had gotta feel uncomfortable for most. And then they pull into this country and western bar and grill kind of place where it's just a constant stream of sugar glass bottles like being flung at them. That's the whole point.
Even when they start playing music that the crowd enjoys, there's still bottles being thrown at them.
So there's that. Yeah.
I did have one issue with the movie, though. I mean, we've been saying all the good things, but Elwood, Dan Aykroyd's accent, I didn't know if he was going for the Bronx or Minnesota, but it definitely wasn't Chicago.
I'm going to give him an out on this one, which is to say that our experience of Chicago accents and the accents of Chicago are changing very fast. Now, did he nail it? No. But did he go for something wildly inappropriate? I would say no as well, because I think you can still hear that accent.
It was mostly the word endings.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm okay with it.
And occasionally a vowel here or there.
Every once in a while, I have a patient who sounds just like that.
All right.
So,
that's fair.
So there's that. You know, I mean, his was sort of turned up to like 12. If he had like turned it down to 8, it probably would have been fine. But
Belushi, for obvious reasons, got the accent perfect.
Yeah, although I think he wasn't trying to do anything different than what he normally
No, but he's from Chicago.
The degree to which he is not trying to do anything different than what he normally does. Like, I'm thinking about, Animal House. I'm thinking about, some of his other, like, his work from Saturday Night Live, that, like, for the most part, he's just being John Belushi.
Yeah.
Like, I think there was sort of, and the way that I imagine trying to direct, like, Robin Williams would have been like there was just this dynamo, and you point him in the direction of the camera and you turn him loose, and then you gotta go with whatever you get. That's my impression. It could be totally different than that, but I feel like that's...
It's also possible they just always ask him to play basically the same character.
And who knows what he would have done if he'd been able to live longer. So, like, I think the fact that we're looking at... This is also his last movie, right? Or damn near close?
It was very near.
Very near his last movie. So, so who knows what his career might have looked like, from here.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy. So, as we are wrapping up, last thoughts, takeaway?
I'm definitely glad I finally saw the movie. Even though, it wasn't quite what I was expecting on a number of levels. One of them I mentioned yesterday is I always got the impression they started further downstate, and I knew there was a prison scene involved, but I thought they ended up like in prison in the middle of the movie, not Jake getting out at the beginning, or both going back at the end and taking the band with them for some reason. Yeah. But yeah, definitely glad I've seen the movie now. I'm looking forward to seeing the Blues Brothers 2000 at some point.
Are you? I'm really not. Like, this is just one of those, I guess, a difference for me. My last thought, my takeaway would be just, we didn't talk much about this, but I want one last sort of shout out to a group of people who did a lovely bit of work in this film are the dancers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking of the dancers in the church scene and the dancers in the scene with Ray Charles on sort of the street. You know, people are dancing outside of the store where he's playing. And just, what a nice job they did. So,
yeah.
Good movie. One to revisit from time to time.
I did find myself wanting a all-beef hot dog with all the Vienna signs in the movie, though.
We do love our hot dogs.
Yes.
All right.
So, if you feel we've missed anything, or if you have comments about the music in the movie, or memories of Chicago, if you live there or have lived there, or it's one of your favorite cities to visit, please comment down in the space below, or go to novetovideo.com and leave your comments there.
All right. I almost sneezed on you. I'm glad I didn't. Oh, you know, if you just want to, quoted us your favorite lines in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fine thing, too.
If you feel you're on a mission from God to comment, again, it's down below.
Go right ahead. All right, we're gonna leave you guys alone. But now is our time on No Veto Video where we take a moment to recommend to you another film, either in place of or in companion with this film. We call it our Override. So, Carson, what's your override this week?
Well, if you like Saturday Night Live movies and like movies about a couple of people getting into all sorts of trouble on trips, I would recommend Wayne's World. It's got a number of similarities. I know people detract from it because they said parts of it happen in Aurora, Illinois that were not filmed in Aurora, and the things set there aren't even in the Midwest at all. But, you know, if you can overlook that, it's a hilarious movie.
That's a good recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay, so my override for this week, sort of staying in the same general time zone, period-wise. Another kind of caper chase flick. Beyond that, the link is very tenuous, but I'm recommending to you guys as a companion piece to the Blues Brothers, Silver Streak, starring Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder as one of their sort of buddy duo movies. So enjoy that. Enjoy Wayne's World. Do enjoy the Blues Brothers if you haven't watched it already. All right, what's up next?
Next time we'll be watching Cloverfield Paradox that just came out of nowhere.
It did come out of nowhere right after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So from this year, it's available on Netflix. We're gonna watch it. And then we'll be back next week with our response. Okay, thank you for watching. We're glad that you were here. We look forward to seeing you guys again next week. If you hit subscribe, it'll give you a notification when we launch the new video. And we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Goodbye.